Hollywood, a land of flashing lights, red carpets, and million-dollar dreams. For many child stars, it seemed like a golden ticket to fame and fortune. But behind the scenes, far from the glitz, lie stories so dark they'll make your skin crawl. Some of these young talents earned fortunes before they even hit their teenage years, only to have every last dollar stolen by the people they trusted most. Not strangers, not shady agents, but their own parents. The very ones meant to love, shield, and guide them became their cruelest enemies, draining them dry and tossing them aside when the spotlight faded. Are you ready to confront this heartbreaking truth? What you're about to hear are the real-life nightmares of 15 gifted children who once lit up the big screen, but were paid back with betrayal, heartbreak, and childhood soaked in tears. Grab some tissues. These stories will shatter your heart from the very first word. Lena Horne, celebrated singer, radiant actress, and civil rights icon, wasn't always in control of her spotlight. Long before she graced Hollywood's silver screens or captivated crowds on Broadway, she was a 16-year-old girl being sold to showbiz by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Born in Brooklyn in 1917, Lena never truly knew what it meant to be a child. Her father walked out early, and her mother, Edna, a failed actress consumed by ambition, saw Lena not as a daughter, but as a ticket out of poverty. From city to city, stage to stage, Lena was paraded like a prized possession. Her childhood was replaced by rehearsals. Her lullabies were nightclub jazz tunes. And then came 1933. Just 16, Lena was thrust into the infamous Cotton Club, a place dripping in glamour on the surface but hiding a darker underworld beneath. It wasn't about music. It was about power, control, exploitation. The girls weren't just entertainers. They were bait for the club's wealthy white patrons. And Lena? She was thrown into the lion's den with no voice, no shield, and no way out. Her mother didn't blink. As long as the money rolled in, nothing else mattered. Lena was treated like property, traded, pressured, and pushed to perform in ways no teenager ever should. But Lena had something fierce inside her. She refused to surrender. At 20, desperate for freedom, she entered a loveless marriage just to break free from Edna's grip. But her real fight had only just begun. By the 1940s, Hollywood had taken notice. MGM handed her contracts, only to cut her scenes to satisfy Jim Crow sensibilities. She was typecast, silenced, and sidelined. But Lena didn't let the system break her. She shattered it. With elegance and fire, she transformed her pain into power, rising not just as an entertainer, but as a voice for justice. The girl who had once been sold into a world of silence became a woman who would never be silenced again. Emmanuel Lewis, the child star Hollywood loved, and his mother betrayed. Emmanuel Lewis once lit up American television screens as the lovable, pint-sized star of Webster. With his big smile and natural charm, he captured hearts across the nation starting in 1983. But while the world saw a joyful child living the dream, the truth behind the camera was far darker. A life carefully controlled, emotionally drained, and tragically exploited by the one person who should have protected him most, his mother. Born in 1971 in Brooklyn, New York, Emmanuel had a rare growth disorder that kept him small. For Hollywood, it was a casting dream, a boy who never seemed to grow up. But for his mother, Margaret Lewis, it was something more, a gold mine. From his earliest years, she pushed him into non-stop work, commercials, auditions, and eventually the hit sitcom that would make him famous. Webster made him a household name. But behind the scenes, it cost him everything. Margaret held complete control over his money, his contracts, even his bedtime. Emmanuel wasn't just managed. He was micromanaged. No friends, no freedom, and no real childhood. While other kids were playing and going to school, Emmanuel was grinding through 14-hour days on set, performing scripts others wrote, living a life designed for profit, not for joy. And the exploitation didn't stop when the cameras did. After Webster ended in 1989, Hollywood moved on. Emmanuel didn't. His mother, desperate to keep the money flowing, pushed him into low-budget projects and public appearances, wringing out every drop of fame he had left. But by the time he reached adulthood, the truth came crashing down. his fortune was gone. Wasted. Squandered on bad investments and reckless spending. The millions he earned? Vanished. And so was any chance at the life he might have had. Today, Emmanuel Lewis lives far from the spotlight. He never married. Never had children. He carries the weight of stolen youth, a broken career, and the betrayal of a parent who saw him not as a son, but as a paycheck. He was once America's golden child. Now, he's a quiet reminder of what happens when fame is forced too young and love is replaced by greed. Jamie Foxworth, once the bright-eyed child star who brought Judy Winslow to life on Family Matters, became yet another heartbreaking example of Hollywood's darkest side. In the early 90s, her innocent smile lit up living rooms across America. But behind that smile was a little girl trapped in a world that didn't love her back. And when the cameras stopped rolling, so did everyone else's care. Born in 1979 in Illinois, Jamie was thrust into showbiz at just 5 years old. Her parents didn't see a daughter, they saw a paycheck. They controlled every audition, every contract, every dollar. At 10, she landed the role of Judy Winslow, a breakout moment that should have changed her life for the better. Instead, it stole her childhood. Long workdays, no real friends, no freedom. Everything she earned? Gone, spent by her own family. Then came 1993. Without warning, Judy Winslow vanished from Family Matters. No explanation. No goodbye. Just erased. The showrunners wanted to spotlight Steve Urkel, and Jamie was deemed disposable. Her parents didn't fight for her. They took the loss and walked away, just like that. With no income and no future, Jamie was abandoned by the very people who built their lives on her back. By 18, she was broke, alone, and invisible in an industry that once applauded her. Desperate and without options, she entered the adult film industry in 2000 under the name Crave, not because she wanted to, but because she had to eat. It was a choice born from survival, not desire. She later revealed that financial pressure from her family pushed her into that world, a world that only deepened her wounds. Addiction followed. Drugs. Alcohol. Years of trying to silence the pain of being used, discarded, and forgotten. Jamie Foxworth had become a tragic symbol of what happens when child stars are chewed up and left behind. But she didn't give up. In 2008, she checked into celebrity rehab to fight for herself. In 2009, she became a mother, and with that, a flicker of hope returned. She began the hard journey of healing, of piecing together the life stolen from her. Yet, Hollywood never came calling again. And the scars of her past never fully faded. Jamie's story isn't just one of fame lost, it's a raw, gut-wrenching reminder of how easily young lives are exploited in the spotlight and how hard it is to reclaim what fame never gave: peace, protection, and a chance to just be a kid. Jurnee Smollett-Bell, child star or family pawn? Jurnee Smollett-Bell may be a Hollywood favorite today, but behind the fame lies a childhood stolen. She first lit up the screen at just 4 years old, captivating audiences in Eve's Bayou and charming fans in Full House and On Our Own. But while the world saw a rising star, Jurnee was living a carefully controlled life, one where her dreams didn't matter, only her dollar signs did. Born into a family of 6 siblings, Jurnee wasn't nurtured, she was managed. Her parents didn't guide her, they orchestrated her. Every audition, every smile, every tear was part of a schedule she never chose. At an age when most kids played with toys and ran through parks, Jurnee was hustled from casting calls to sound stages. By 5, she was already a seasoned TV actress, hanging with Mr. Cooper, On Our Own, but she wasn't allowed to own the success she worked so hard for. The spotlight may have been on her, but the power was in her parents' hands. They signed the contracts, controlled the bank accounts, and spent the money as they saw fit. If she complained, she was told to be professional. If she cried, they reminded her the family needed the money. Her exhaustion wasn't met with love, it was met with pressure. Her life wasn't hers, it was a performance. She couldn't choose friends, explore love, or even decide what she liked. Her every move was policed, her voice silenced, her spirit boxed in. Because deep down, her parents feared the day she'd realize her worth and walk away. But you can't chain a soul forever. As she grew older, Jurnee found her strength. She took back her life and her career, starring in powerful roles like The Great Debaters and Lovecraft Country. She broke the cycle, but the wounds linger. The little girl who once had no say is now a woman who fought tooth and nail for her freedom. She didn't just survive. She reclaimed what was stolen. Gary Coleman, from millionaire child star to a life stolen by greed. Gary Coleman was once one of the most beloved faces on American television, a pint-sized powerhouse who lit up screens as Arnold Jackson on Diff'rent Strokes. From 1978 to 1986, he was a household name, raking in a staggering $70,000 per episode. But behind the laughter, catchphrases, and fame was a heartbreaking story of exploitation, betrayal, and deep personal pain. Born with a rare kidney disease that stunted his growth, Gary never stood taller than 4 feet 8 inches, but his talent was undeniable. At just 9 years old, his adoptive parents, Willie and Sue Coleman, pushed him into the spotlight. To the world, he was a star. To them, he was a goldmine. Instead of protecting their son, they drained him. They controlled every penny, living lavishly while Gary worked himself to exhaustion, even filming through illness, just so the checks kept coming. When Diff'rent Strokes ended and Gary turned 18, he expected financial security. Instead, he found empty accounts and broken trust. In 1989, Gary took the brave step of suing his parents and manager. The court ruled in his favor in 1993, awarding him $1.3 million. But compared to the fortune he had generated, it was crumbs. The emotional scars, however, ran much deeper than the financial loss. Struggling to reclaim his life, Gary's career stalled. He took odd acting jobs that barely paid, and by 1999, he filed for bankruptcy. Once a millionaire icon, Gary was now working as a mall security guard just to survive. Years of betrayal, isolation, and public humiliation took a toll on his mental health. He lashed out, got into altercations, and seemed trapped in a cycle of pain. Then, in 2010, tragedy struck one final time. After a fall left him in critical condition, Gary died at just 42 years old. He passed away broke, alone, and without even enough money for a funeral. In a cruel twist, it was his ex-wife, Shannon Price, divorced but still holding medical power, who made the decision to take him off life support and then tried to claim what little he had left. Gary Coleman gave the world joy, but behind that childlike grin was a life robbed by greed, a star dimmed far too soon. Leon Frierson, Nickelodeon's golden child, broken behind the scenes. In the late 90s, Leon Frierson was a rising star, a bright, energetic face lighting up screens on Nickelodeon's hit show All That from 1997 to 2000. With his sharp comedic timing and infectious smile, Leon quickly became one of the network's most beloved young talents. But behind the laughter and studio lights was a childhood scarred by exploitation and heartbreak. Born in 1986, Leon's talent was undeniable. At just 11 years old, he beat out hundreds to earn a coveted spot on All That. With each sketch, he proved himself a powerhouse performer, earning $15,000 per episode and amassing over $2 million by the time he was a teenager. But while the world saw a young star living the dream, behind closed doors, he was living a nightmare. His parents, meant to protect and guide him, saw dollar signs instead of a son. They controlled every part of his life. His money, his schedule, even his friendships. Breaks weren't allowed. Refusing a role meant punishment, isolation, or worse, physical abuse. To them, Leon wasn't a child. He was a paycheck. When he turned 18 and finally gained access to his earnings, he discovered the devastating truth. His accounts were nearly empty. The millions he had made were gone, spent on luxury homes, flashy cars, and failed investments. When he confronted his parents, their response was cold and cruel. "You should be grateful, we had good years." After being dropped from All That in 2000, Leon spiraled into a deep mental and emotional collapse. Stripped of money, support, and trust, he battled depression and anxiety. Friends say he turned to alcohol and drugs to silence the pain. In 2006, he took the brave step of suing his parents for abuse and embezzlement, but without solid legal proof, the case was dismissed. His parents disappeared from Hollywood, living comfortably while Leon was left to pick up the pieces. Today, Leon Frierson remains in the entertainment world, no longer in the spotlight, but behind it. He writes, produces, and takes on small indie roles, quietly rebuilding what was stolen from him. His story is a chilling reminder of how the very people meant to love and protect you can become the ones who leave the deepest wounds, especially when blinded by fame and fortune. Marcus de Polk, the child star betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect him. Marcus T. Polk was once the bright young face America adored, best known for playing Miles Mitchell on the hit sitcom Moesha from 1996 to 2001. With his warm smile and effortless charm, Marcus lit up every screen he was on. But while the world saw a rising star, behind closed doors, Marcus was being used, not nurtured, by those closest to him. Pushed into the spotlight at just 4 years old, Marcus began appearing in commercials before landing the role that changed his life. Moesha brought him fame, fans, and a paycheck of up to $20,000 per episode. But he never got to enjoy the fruits of his success. Every dollar he earned was taken by his parents, people who treated their own child less like a son and more like a golden ticket. Then, in 2005, came the heartbreaking truth. Marcus discovered that the millions he had earned were gone, blown on luxury cars, designer clothes, flashy vacations, and a lifestyle he never got to enjoy. When he finally needed money, his bank account held just a few $100s. The betrayal shattered him. In the years that followed, Marcus began spiraling, partying, drinking, desperately trying to drown out the pain of being robbed of both his childhood and his trust. By 2013, his struggles hit headlines when he was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend, a moment that marked the complete collapse of the child star image the world once knew. As the spotlight faded, so did his career. He took up DJing, small-time acting gigs, and whatever work he could find just to get by. In 2016, his parents were sued for financial fraud involving a misused loan. But to this day, they've never been held accountable for what they did to their son. Marcus T. Polk's story is not just about a fall from fame. It's a haunting reminder of how fame and fortune can be twisted into a child's worst nightmare when trust is broken at home. Kyle Massey, from Disney darling to a prisoner of parental greed. Kyle Massey once ruled the Disney Channel, lighting up screens as the lovable Corey Baxter in That's So Raven and Corey in the House. In the early 2000s, he was comedy gold, a kid with effortless charm, a booming fan base, and contracts worth a fortune. To millions, he was the dream. Funny, famous, and full of life. But behind that playful grin was a childhood hijacked by exploitation. Massey hit fame at just 12 years old. Between 2003 and 2008, he was Disney's golden boy. The money flowed, $25,000 an episode, over $1.5 million from one show alone, not counting brand deals and endorsements. But none of it stayed with him. His parents held the reins to his entire world. The money, the contracts, even his freedom. He didn't live like a child. He lived like a machine. 12-hour days on set. Endless promotional tours. No room for rest. No time to grow. And every dollar he earned fed the family's lavish lifestyle. Mansions, luxury cars, bad investments. When Kyle looked up years later, his fortune was gone. Every cent. And worse, the emotional scars ran deeper than the debt. His parents controlled him with fear. They made him believe quitting meant his family would starve. They banned him from dating, stalked his every move, and when he tried to take back his life, they threatened to sue him, their own son. By 2021, Kyle found himself in legal turmoil, accused of sending explicit content to a minor. A serious charge, a public fall from grace. But behind that headline is a story of a young man broken by those who were supposed to protect him. And while Kyle faced the world's judgment, his parents, they're still living large, untouched, unpunished, and silent. Keisha Knight Pulliam, from America's sweetheart to a victim of parental greed. Keisha Knight Pulliam was once the angelic face of The Cosby Show, winning over America as the lovable Rudy Huxtable. With her bright smile and natural charm, she became the darling of the 80s. Every household knew her name. By age 5, she wasn't just acting, she was a cultural icon. Fame, fortune, and adoration came early. She earned a staggering $25,000 per episode, a dream life, or so it seemed. But behind the cameras, her reality was far from picture perfect. Keisha wasn't just a child star, she was a goldmine. And her parents, James and Denise, didn't see their daughter, they saw dollar signs. She began her career at just 9 months old, and from that moment on, her childhood was bought and sold. While the world applauded, her parents spent wildly, draining her earnings with reckless abandon. When Keisha came of age in 2002 and asked for control of her finances, the truth was devastating. More than 80% of her millions had vanished. They didn't just rob her bank account, they robbed her of a childhood, of choices, of peace. Even when she expressed a desire for a proper education, she was silenced. Acting was the priority, not her future. She hinted at her struggles as early as 1996, but no one truly listened. As an adult, she was forced to take her own parents to court, fighting to recover the scraps of what was once her hard-earned legacy. Kel Mitchell, Nickelodeon's teen comedy king, and the heartbreaking betrayal that nearly destroyed him. In the 90s, Kel Mitchell was the face of fun. As the hilarious star of All That and Kenan and Kel, he lit up Nickelodeon screens and became a teen comedy icon. Kids everywhere laughed with him, admired him, wanted to be him. But while the world saw his radiant smile and goofy charm, behind the scenes was a painful truth. Kel was living a silent tragedy, exploited by the very people meant to protect him, his own parents. Born and raised in Chicago, Kel showed early promise in performing. By 16, he was on All That, 1994 to 1999, and his fame skyrocketed with Kenan and Kel, 1996 to 2000. At the peak of his career, he was pulling in $500,000 per season, a teen millionaire in the making. But Kel never saw that money. His parents held the purse strings, cutting shady deals and spending recklessly behind his back. By the time Kenan and Kel ended, the unthinkable had happened. Kel was flat broke. Millions were gone. Wasted on luxury cars, failed business ventures, and a lifestyle Kel never agreed to. When he questioned them, he was branded ungrateful. Isolated, trapped, and financially ruined, Kel spiraled into a deep depression. In 2004, it nearly ended in tragedy. Kel came close to taking his own life. He was drowning in debt, his marriage crumbled by 2005, and the fame that once brought him joy now felt like a cruel joke. His parents? Still living comfortably off his past success. But Kel didn't give up. In 2010, through faith, reflection, and resilience, he began rebuilding his life, not for fame, but for survival. He chose healing over hate, hope over despair. And though the scars remain, so does his strength. Lil Hye, the child star broken by the people who should have protected him. Lil Hye, born James Charles Lewis III, was once a teen sensation lighting up Nickelodeon screens with shows like Just Jordan and All That. In the early 2000s, he wasn't just famous. He was golden, a rising star making serious money before he was even old enough to drive. But behind that bright smile was a painful truth. The people he trusted most were slowly destroying him. Raised in Arkansas, JJ showed talent early and won a major BET comedy contest at just 13 years old, launching him into the spotlight. Just Jordan made him a household name between 2007 and 2008, earning him $25,000 per episode, not including the big bucks from commercials and appearances. But instead of securing his future, his parents saw dollar signs. They took control of his finances and spent recklessly, treating him like a paycheck instead of a son. By 2009, at only 19, Lil JJ's bank account was nearly wiped out. Over 80% of his hard-earned money was gone. But the betrayal went deeper than the bank. His parents worked him to the bone, ignoring his tears and exhaustion. He was a teenager crying on set, begging for rest, only to be pushed harder, all for their gain. The relentless pressure drove JJ into a deep depression. In 2010, he tried to walk away from the industry altogether, desperate to escape his toxic home life. But with no savings, he was trapped. By 21, he was drowning in debt, left to clean up the financial wreckage his parents created. His career crumbled. His spirit shattered. And just like that, he disappeared from Hollywood. Years later, Lil JJ began to rebuild, quietly stepping into directing and stand-up comedy. But even as he fights to reclaim his future, the pain of his stolen childhood still lingers, a haunting reminder of what fame can cost when those closest to you turn into your greatest betrayal. Orlando Brown, from Disney stardom to the streets, a tragic fall from grace. Orlando Brown was once the face of Disney Channel magic. As Eddie Thomas on That's So Raven from 2003 to 2007, he lit up screens and became a household name. Behind the laughter and fame, though, a darker reality brewed, one that would ultimately destroy his career and nearly his life. Born in 1987, Orlando entered Hollywood at just 8 years old and quickly soared to child stardom. With That's So Raven paying him up to $25,000 per episode, he should have been set for life. But the money never truly belonged to him. His parents controlled every cent, striking deals in his name while spending recklessly on their own indulgences. When the show ended, Orlando checked his bank account and found almost nothing. But the betrayal didn't stop at financial ruin. The pressures of fame, childhood trauma, and emotional neglect drove him toward a breaking point. By 21, he turned to drugs to numb the pain. Fame faded, money vanished, and soon, the headlines turned tragic. In 2016, he was arrested for drug possession and domestic violence. What followed were years of bizarre public outbursts, including wild claims like dating Raven-Symoné. By 2020, Orlando had hit rock bottom. Homeless, mentally shattered, and wandering the streets, a former star barely clinging to reality. In 2021, after years of chaos, he finally sought help. He entered rehab, found faith, and began the long road to redemption. But despite his efforts, the spotlight that once embraced him has yet to return. Orlando Brown's story is a haunting reminder of what happens when child stars are used, discarded, and left to pick up the pieces alone. Larenz Tate. A star born from pain, betrayal, and survival. Before Larenz Tate became a household name, before Menace to Society catapulted him into stardom, he was just a boy trying to survive a childhood that felt more like a prison sentence. At just 10 years old, Larenz lit up screens in The Twilight Zone and 21 Jump Street, his talent undeniable, his future seemingly golden. But behind the scenes, the people who should have protected him, his own parents, became his greatest tormentors. Starting in 1985, his parents treated Larenz not as a child, but as a paycheck. They shoved him into audition after audition, not caring about his dreams, only the dollar signs. As the money rolled in from commercials and TV roles, none of it went to his well-being. Instead, it fed their addictions, alcohol, gambling, and a lifestyle built on exploitation. By the age of 15, Larenz had earned over $500,000 and hadn't seen a single cent. But the abuse went deeper than financial theft. Behind closed doors, his father turned violent. Beatings were frequent and brutal, often leaving Larenz bruised and battered at school. When he tried to stand up for himself, he was met with more rage. And his mother? She didn't intervene, she blamed him for not being good enough. Haunted by trauma and battling depression through his teen years, Larenz could have been another child star lost to the system. But in 1993, with the success of Menace to Society, he found his voice. He fought for financial freedom, moved out, and cut ties with the parents who had drained him dry. That turning point changed everything. Today, Larenz Tate stands as a man who rewrote his fate. He built a strong, lasting career, a loving family of his own, and he fiercely protects his children from the pain he once knew. Meanwhile, the parents who once used him for profit now live in shame and debt, abandoned by the very world they tried to conquer through their son. Dion Richmond, a childhood stolen by those meant to protect him. Dion Richmond was once the golden boy of TV, winning hearts as Bud on The Cosby Show. At just 6 years old, he stepped into the spotlight, young, talented, and full of promise. But while America saw a smiling child star, behind the scenes, Dion was living a nightmare. By the age of 8, his parents no longer saw a son, they saw a paycheck. Every season brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars, yet Dion never got to touch a cent. His parents controlled every dime, burning through his earnings while he lived without even his own bank account. By 1992, he had earned over $1.2 million, yet he lived like he had nothing. But the emotional scars ran deeper than financial exploitation. At home, Dion faced brutal abuse at the hands of his father. Belts, hangers, even electrical cords, anything within reach became a weapon. The violence left visible marks, but no one stepped in. He was just a kid, trapped in silence and fear. It wasn't until he turned 18 that Dion found the strength to break away from the control, the pain, and the people who were supposed to love him. And so, we've peeled back the curtain on 15 lives that once lit up our screens with laughter, talent, and innocence, only to reveal a darker truth hidden behind the fame. These child stars were not just robbed of their money, but of their childhoods, their peace, and in many cases, their futures. Abused, overworked, and betrayed by the very people meant to protect them. It's a haunting reminder that success in Hollywood can come at a heartbreaking cost. If these stories moved you, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and share this video to raise awareness. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories the world needs to hear. Thank you for watching.